Hi, my name is Ricky Cox. I'm a master plumber with 12 years of experience in the field. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to fix a wobbly rocking toilet. Alright, so today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be pulling the toilet. The customer complained that it's wobbling. I want to show you what's going on. Yeah, that's a wobbly toilet. And to make matters even worse, the closet bolts are completely broken off. So what this tells me is there's more than likely a broken toilet flange, closet flange. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna get right to work. We're gonna shop back out the tank. Before we do that, we're gonna turn the water off, disconnect the supply line, shop back out the tank, shop back out the bowl. I'm gonna set this toilet in the bathtub, and then we'll take a look at the flange and see what kind of repair we need to do today. So, step one, turn the supply line off. Looks like the supply line is not going to turn off because the angle stop is toast. So we're going to be replacing the angle stop as well. Alright, so Manny went ahead and turned the water off. And what I'm going to do now, I'm going to shop back the water out of the bowl and the tank, disconnect the supply line, and then I'll set the toilet in the tub. And while we're doing this job, we're going to go ahead and replace the angle stop and the supply line. We'll replace the angle stop with a quarter turn valve. That way we don't have this issue in the future. You can disconnect the supply line by hand. Just turn counterclockwise. With the supply line disconnected, I'm going to lift straight up. What I like to do is I like to get right over the toilet, and you're almost squatting up. It's not really a deadlift, it's more of a squatting up. And so I'll put my hands right under here, kind of under the edge of the seat, and then I'll just center my weight, lift straight up, and then this toilet will go right into the tub. Take a look. That flange has seen better days, has it not? So, step one of dealing with this is we're going to go ahead and replace that angle stop with a brand new quarter turn stop. So we'll stop the video here, go grab our tools, grab our needed supplies, and then we'll change that out first. Get the camera a little closer. I want to show the viewers this. So the water's off. This angle stop is dripping. There's always a little bit of water that's going to be left in the pipes that you have to drain down. We opened up a hose bib outside, but the toilet is typically the lowest fixture in regards to the water line. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my shop vac, hook it up to the supply line, open up the valve, and just suck all the water out of there. And I'm also going to suck the water off the floor. You can tell that this wax string had been leaking for a while because there's a lot of buildup. So we're just going to clean up this area real quick. And yeah, we'll get right into that. So. Right, so what I'm going to do now is So I'll disconnect the supply line first, and that's going to go in my trash bucket. What I'm doing here is I'm loosening the outside valve. We're going to go ahead and change this valve out so we don't have any issues. So this is a copper pipe, but it's got a male adapter soldered on the end. So all we have to do is unthread this angle stop, and then we'll put a brand new one on, and then we'll turn the water back on. So. Any excess Teflon tape off of the pipe, and then you're ready to apply new Teflon tape and dope. Teflon tape on my bag here. Let me go ahead and grab it. Pardon me, sir. Got my handy pipe dope right here. And then this is the valve we're going to be using. This is a quarter turn valve, so it's either on or off. You can see the ball inside of there. I'll be careful. So again, clockwise around the pipe about 5 to 6 times, and then pipe dope. Always put a backup wrench on the other side. So that you don't risk snapping the pipe or causing damage while you're turning it. Work out beautifully. Our supply line will hook up right to that. Go directly onto the toilet. All right, now that that's done, let's jump right into talking about how we're going to address this flange. We got a couple of options here. So we could install a new flange completely, or, and this is probably what I'm going to recommend, if you look at the flange itself is not in terrible shape. I think the issue is the way that they anchored the closet bolts last time. So this is pretty close to level with the floor. I don't see any breaks. I think really what happened here is they must have put these toilet bolts in, but just not done a really good job of anchoring them to this flange. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a flathead and a hammer, and I'm going to see if I can't chisel out. This looks like extra grout that got applied around this flange. I'm going to break that grout up and see if I can't get a closet bolt to fit in there and to anchor to this existing flange. If so, we should be good to go. But yeah, I really think that's what we're going to do here. So I'm going to grab a hammer and a flathead chisel and see if I can get that grout out of there. Yeah, so whoever set this toilet just didn't know what they were doing last time, because I can tell that grout was preventing the closet bolt from getting in there and grabbing to the existing flange. So yeah, someone just didn't know what they were doing. Probably not a truly professional plumber. What I'll also do is I'll scrape up any excess looking debris off of this flange, just so I can make sure I get a really nice seal when I go to drop my wax ring in place. And I'm going to do the same thing with the other side. I'm just going to chisel a little bit, break up the grout that's around this flange. Alright, I've got a bunch of toilet parts in here. So we've got our wax ring, 2 different kinds of closet bolts here. And what we're going to do is we're going to see if we can fit the closet bolt into place. Look at that. So there's nothing wrong with this flange. I was worried it was broken because of how wobbly the toilet was. Long story short, someone just didn't know what they were doing. Now, this side, let's see if I can get it all the way in. Yep. Looks like I may need to chisel a little bit more on that side, but this side is pretty much ready to get a washer. And so what I'll typically do, I buy a set of closet bolts that have 2 sets of washers and 2 sets of nuts, acorn nuts. And what I'll do is I'll put a washer down, and then I'll use an acorn nut, and I'll use the flat side of the acorn nut to anchor the bolt down to the flange. And when I'm setting this, I like to do the wide side. You've got a narrow side and a wide side. I'll do the wider side against the flange so that it's got a greater surface area to grip. And then you just basically, you spin the acorn nut down, get it hand tight, and then you get 2 pairs of pliers and crank it, and your bolts are going to be set, and you're not going to have to worry about your toilet rocking. See, if you don't anchor your closet bolts to your flange, you risk the bolts moving and getting out of the flange, or just even breaking the bolt. And so I'm a believer that we need to go ahead and bolt this down to the flange. So that's how I was taught. It's the right way to do it. Provides extra security to the toilet. So what we're gonna do, and it doesn't take much, just a couple of spins. You'll feel it getting tight. Look, that ain't going nowhere. So that's set. We're gonna do the same thing over here. I just need to finish chiseling out a little bit more. just about all the way in. Now we'll get our acorn nut and flat washer on there. The last thing I'm going to do before we get ready to set this toilet is I'm going to clean up. You can see the old caulk line, and then there's some stains from where the water was escaping the toilet flange and getting out under the toilet. We're going to clean this up real nice. Use a couple of rags and a putty knife, and then we'll set our wax ring and proceed to set our toilet. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And like I said, putty knife and a couple of rags, and you can pretty much clean this up very quickly. Putty knife will do your scraping, break up most of the material. And then sometimes I'll put something down like some bleach or just something to kind of clean the area, sanitize it a little bit. We've got some Fabuloso here. If you're Hispanic, you know all about this. This is the good stuff, boy. We'll probably put some of this down and just clean the floor with it. So. Man, you know all about that Fabuloso, don't you?
Yes, it looks delicious, but please don't ingest.
That's an inside joke. Manny, I think you said it was your brother-in-law?
Yeah.
Manny's brother-in-law put Fabuloso on a steak one time.
It's horrible.
And bit into it. The theory of evolution might be real after all. Or at least natural selection. Okay, so we've got the water back on, and we've got no leaks, as you can tell. That is a brand new angle stop and a brand new supply line to boot. No leaks, looking good. So the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna put our wax ring on there. Let's clean that up real quick. So we've got our bolts in. We're just gonna set a wax ring right here, right on top. Some plumbers like to use wax rings with horns. I'm not a fan. I've seen them get really nasty if there's a stoppage. And so I'm not a big fan of wax rings with horns. And so all I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna set it centered right there. I'm gonna take my wax ring and get it away. And then I'm gonna make sure I have plenty of space so that I can set this toilet. Now, what I'm gonna do before I set this toilet is I'm gonna line myself up. You see these holes on the side of the toilet? That is where we have to get our bolts through. And so I'm just gonna lift up straight. I'm gonna look down the toilet as I'm setting it, and then I'm gonna let it go down slowly directly onto the wax ring, okay? Now, just sitting right here, I can tell you that the floor is extremely unlevel. Okay, and so what that means is we have to shim this toilet. We're also gonna grout it, okay? If you don't grout or shim this toilet, it will rock. And we don't want that. That's not good. So, let's go ahead and do this. I got a torpedo level here. And what I want to try and do is figure out which side of the toilet can I get more level than the other. Okay. This floor is really wobbly. That's probably the better side to lean the toilet to. And it's not perfect because the floor is just so out of whack. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some shims and I'm going to shim the left side of the toilet now. So if you want to get the camera closer over to this side, we can show them what we're doing here. So I'm just taking my shims and I'm going to insert them underneath the toilet. And you'll be surprised at how just a little bit of shimming can fix a lot of wobble. Okay, that's already, look, and remember, I have not bolted this down to the floor yet. I'm just shimming this now. I'm trying to wobble this, and it's not really wobbling. I need to get one more shim on the front side. There's a massive gap. If you get the camera closer, there's a massive, massive gap underneath this toilet on this side. So that's why it was wobbly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add one more set of shims. I may have to double up these shims on this side. Look, that's not going anywhere. And I haven't even bolted it down. So now we're going to bolt it down. Okay. So to bolt it down, I've got, these are called China caps. Don't put this side up. If you put this side up, it's not going to adhere well. You actually want this side so that it can snap in place. So you put your China caps down. Immediately on top of your China caps, we're going to do a flat washer. And then we're going to do an acorn washer. And this time, you want the acorn side, the rounded side of your nut facing down. That's going to center the washer and get everything nice and tight. Okay. You want to keep your China cap, the bottom part of your China cap, nice and centered. You're going to hand tighten both sides. And then you'll take a small pair of pliers and tighten down the other side a little bit more. Feels pretty solid. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to hook the supply line up to the toilet, and then I will flush the toilet a few times, make sure that there's no leaks, and then I'll show you how to cut the shims, and we're going to apply grout. We're going to let this toilet sit overnight with the grout. That way it's got something real sturdy that's sitting on. This floor is just terrible, and that's why this toilet was rocking. So we're going to pause the video here, and then we'll pick up in a minute. All right, so we filled up our toilet. Now's the moment of truth. We're gonna give it a flush and see if it leaks. Looks good. So what we'll do now, I'm gonna cut these shims. I'll get these closet bolts on, or China caps rather. So these just pop right on. Don't over tighten your closet bolts. All right, and then bring the camera over here. What we're gonna do, I'm just going to take my knife. I've got a razor blade here. And I'm going to just run it right alongside the edge of the toilet here to cut the shim. Same thing here. I'm going to cut these shims. And now look, the toilet is still secure. That's what we want. Now, this is probably the most important step. We're going to test a few more times, flush the toilet a few more times. We'll do that off camera. And then we're going to get right into grouting around the base of the toilet. And then that's all she wrote. We're done. Alright, so today I'm going to show you guys how we grout a toilet. Very simple. All you need is a putty knife. I've got some pre-mixed white grout here. And then I've got a sponge that I use for grouting toilets. And what I like to do is I'll take my grout and I'll just kind of smush it underneath the toilet. And I want it thick because this toilet is on super wobbly floor, especially in the areas where you can tell that there's a big gap. I'll really push that grout in there. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this for the entire toilet, and I'll show you guys how we clean it up after. Alright, so I've applied my grout with my putty knife, and then I'm just going to go a couple times around the toilet with this on a vertical. And you'll see that it just cleans everything right up. So I'll go around the toilet a few times, rinse my sponge, dry up around the edges, and we're good to go.